Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you my next video would be a positive one? Nintendo have just announced we can pre-order a Switch 2 in the US, all of those that have been waiting, April 24th, 2025. Well, obviously 2025. That would have sucked if it was any other year. I'm specifically talking to my fellow Americans right now because we also don't even know about Canada yet, but it's a pretty good bet that Canada will be the same day. It just hasn't been announced yet. And I'm sorry to Canada. I'm sorry. No, I shouldn't do it. I used to live there for 2 years. I'm sorry to Canada that you have to go through this because of America. All right, and there is good news. I think actually, in my opinion, considering the situation Nintendo is in, this is all good news. This is 100% good news for us as gamers and consumers living in the US, considering the current market that we are in. And I want to explain that and talk about that because the price of the actual console and Mario Kart and Donkey Kong have not increased due to tariffs. All the accessories have, and I want to talk about that, but the actual core important items, it seems like Nintendo are sinking the cost of those tariffs, which is actually nice. And I didn't expect that. If I'm being 100% honest, I didn't expect that. I wasn't going to make a video initially, but I put out a tweet saying yay, and there was already a lot of confusion, which is understandable. There is so much confusion around what is happening in America right now with the tariffs, and there's a couple of points that I want to get to with that, but first, let's actually look at the prices of stuff. So pre-orders for Switch 2 will begin on Thursday, April 24th. At launch, the price of the Switch 2 in the US will remain as announced on April 2nd at $449.99. And the Switch 2 Mario Kart bundle will also remain at $499.99. Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong haven't changed their price, which in the case of Mario Kart World, we'll just say that's good in this context. However, the Switch 2 accessories will experience price adjustments from those announced due to market conditions. And then we come over here and we see that, yeah, the Switch and the bundle, same price, Donkey Kong, same price, and Mario Kart, same price, but the controller's gone up $5. I'm not sure what all of these were priced at initially, but everything has seemingly gone up between $5 and maybe $10. Even the camera has gone up $5. The Pro Controller is almost $90 now. And before we get into reasoning why behind any of this, I do think that it's good that it's at least just the accessories, because for the most part, I mean, me personally, on almost any video game console launch ever, I've only ever just bought the console and then a game or two. I've never really day one bought a ton of accessories. I typically wait to see what I need. As far as extra Joy-Cons or Pro Controllers in this case, I mean, the bundle, the Switch itself comes with its own Joy-Cons and it's backwards compatible, so you can use the previous Joy-Cons and I believe even the previous Pro Controller. So there's a lot of saving grace here. There's even a good chance a lot of carrying cases people have from Switch 1 might be able to fit their Switch 2. So I really do feel like this is best case scenario that a lot of the unnecessary things, for the most part, are the things that have had the price increase, and that the actual things people want, Nintendo are seemingly sinking the price on when it comes to tariffs. That's all great. I really do think this is best case scenario. And again, this is without going into, oh, Mario Kart World is still 80 or any of that. This is purely talking about this situation that has left a lot of us living in this country really unsure, really worried, not knowing if we're going to be able to pre-order this or pick one up at launch or if we're going to be able to afford it. This has definitely quelled a lot of those fears for a lot of people. And now a lot of people can go back to just being excited. And I think that's great. Without any other conversation, just focusing on this conversation, I think that's great. Now, as I said, I tweeted this out and a lot of people had questions. A lot of people seem to still be upset with Nintendo for even increasing these prices and not understanding why they had to when tariffs have been paused or when their factory is in China, not Vietnam, and a lot of other confusing things. So I do want to talk about that because I think it is important to have that conversation. And I want you to understand that I'm not getting political here. This is probably as close as I've come to an actual political conversation, but I'm just talking about tariffs, not my opinion on tariffs, just talking about the reality of the world that we live in. I'm a mid-30s adult about to have a kid. I can have this conversation with you, okay? Are you ready? Let's do it. Should I talk like Blippy? No. All right, so tariffs. Yes, there has been a 90-day pause on the tariffs at large, those really insane huge numbers that we saw. However, there is a 10% blanket tariff still on most countries. And included in those most countries is Vietnam. It's true that China's tariff is still something like 150%. I'm not really sure what's happening with that, but Vietnam, where the Switch 2 is made, is a 10% tariff. A lot of people have pointed out that the accessories for the Switch are made in China, not Vietnam, while as the Switch itself is made in Vietnam. So here is my base assumption, and I know I'm working on an assumption here, but bear with me. They are charging 10% on their accessories, not the crazy percent that China is facing, which tells me they've just moved production of everything somewhere else, most likely Vietnam, where they already had factories. Any other reason doesn't really make sense, and the argument in against it is, why are they not 150%? Let's not have that conversation. Let's not put that out into the universe. Let's just be happy that it's not the China tax and that it's the Vietnam tax. But that is my assumption. They most likely are moving all their production over and then hitting that 10% rather than hitting any other percent. That's just my guess on that one. But somewhere where I don't have to guess are people that are saying, I thought electronics were exempt from the taxes. And I can completely understand why that confuses you, because technically speaking, the Switch is an electronic. However, it is classified as a toy. It is not like a necessary electronic item like an iPhone or something. It is not exempt from these tariffs because it's classified as a toy. The Switch 2 is a toy. So we unfortunately don't get that nicety. So yeah, there's still a blanket 10% tariff on most countries. Wherever Nintendo are making these accessories now, it seems that they're making them out of a place that's getting a 10% tariff, and my guess is their factories in Vietnam. The alternative there is a very big tariff, and I'm glad that's not happening. We're not exempt from any tariffs because it's a toy, and in this case, it does seem like, especially because we know the Switch 2 console is made in Vietnam, that Nintendo are sinking the cost of the tariffs on the console and the games, which 10% on the accessories might only be $5-10, but 10% on the Switch 2 bundle is $50. And then on the Switch 2 without the bundle is still about $40. So Nintendo are actually taking a hit here, selling those at the original price, seemingly, as far as tariffs go. And considering market research recently priced the Switch 2 to build at about $400, at that point, with that included, Nintendo are essentially selling these things at cost, which isn't crazy because PlayStation and Xbox have always sold their consoles at a loss, relying on software sales and subscriptions to make up for the deficit there. Whereas with the Switch 1, Nintendo actually sold that console at a profit, which is quite unbelievable. And they were looking to do that again with Switch 2, selling it at about a $50 profit, roughly. And this is chipping almost exactly into that profit. So that's got to suck for Nintendo, but at the same time, they clearly saw the opportunity here to sink that cost, keep their prices the same, not upset anyone any more than they needed to, and also keep them somewhat affordable for people. I think I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to say, and I wanted to make this video because I felt like there was a lot of confusion and I wanted to address all of it, and I wanted to keep everybody excited with this news because this news specifically is exciting, that we're essentially back on track as best as we can be in the current economical climate, you know? One interesting note I want to add at the end here is that a lot of us have been disappointed with the price of Mario Kart World at $80, and it is sort of ironic to me in hindsight, at least in America. I know this doesn't apply to anybody else in the world, really. So it's kind of a moot point, but I wanted to point it out. If the price of Mario Kart World was always 70 and never 80, if Nintendo had just set it at 70, and then this tariff went in and they didn't lower the price, the physical would have been back up to 80 anyway. So really now, at least I guess what I'm saying is, at least in America, if you're buying Mario Kart World physical, you're probably paying the price it should be with tariffs. It's the only saving grace. But digital, you're still screwed. Everywhere else in the world, you're still screwed. I don't know what to tell you. I want to know all of your thoughts, though, and you can leave anything that you're thinking down below. Again, I want to reiterate that I do think this is a dub overall. Obviously, I don't feel like the tariffs are a dub overall, but in this case, in this situation with Nintendo, I think they've handled it the best that they could. If you really want a wheel, you can probably buy a cheaper one somewhere else. You don't need a Nintendo carry case or screen protector or all-in-one, because you can just buy the beat-em-up Satisfy one. That's essentially the same price because of tariffs, but you know, all right, bye. Also, it's an electronic. Okay, please. What am I? Playing with a toy in my 30s? Come on.